Hi, my name is Scott Stancell-Condron. Welcome to episode 4 of my podcast, Grief, I Love Tim. Again, I am on my own grief journey. I'm not trying to give advice to anyone. I'm just trying to help myself, and if someone else gets help in the process or it makes them feel better, then so be it. Well, we're almost at Tim's 2-month anniversary of his death, which was Memorial Day, May the 26th, 2025. Possibly the saddest day. Actually, I know it is the saddest day I've ever experienced. Well, maybe some of those days that came after were more sad when the reality set in. I miss him so much that my heart aches. And I feel the further he gets away from me, the more that I miss him. I'm still trying to decide how I want to track time, anniversaries, dates, birthdays, or do I just allow time to track me? I can't make the transformation from we to me. It just sounds weird. I went back into therapy 3 days after Tim died. I'd been out of therapy since right after we moved to the desert, and I was doing long distance with my guy back in Boston that I'd used for 15 years. When Tim passed away, I immediately texted him and said, hey, the guy that I thought I was going to be able to work with out here, it didn't work out. Tim's passed away. Can you help me? So it was a good thing. I didn't have to tell my story again. We could really, focus more on my loss of Tim. So what I want to talk about today is how great our families have been. And, they're our families. It's not Tim's family and it's not my family. They're both of our families. So despite having, 5 siblings between us, 18 nieces and nephews, 40 grands, a host of friends that are family but not related, and just a lot of friends in general. I can tell you that with all that support and comfort and love, I've never felt more alone. So our story out here in the desert began in 2021 when we were going to visit my sister in San Diego during the pandemic, and we were trying to find a place to rent. We rented a place in Escondido on a vineyard that was pretty isolated. Unfortunately, about 5 days before we were to take possession and right before we started our drive out from Boston, because we had our dogs, and that's one of the reasons we drove, plus it was safer then to fly. They told us that everyone on this place had COVID and we couldn't come, so we started looking. We found a place in Palm Desert, and we came out here for 3 years. For a month because of my job. I was working remote, and then because of my job being remote, we were able to buy a place in 2023, and we moved out here full-time in September of 2024. Our plan was always to go back to New England for the summers, stop in Tennessee, see my dad. On the way back, stop in Indiana, see our nephew, those kinds of things. And then on our way back to Boston in February of 2024, Tim had this episode where his organs were shutting down. He couldn't breathe, and so we stopped at an urgent care in Albuquerque, New Mexico. They sent him to the emergency room. His oxygen saturation level was at 50%. And we spent 15 days in Albuquerque. And eventually with steroids and so forth, he got better. We still don't know what happened, but we had this wonderful nurse there, and her name was Jody, and she was there when Tim came in. She caught some mistakes of him not getting a dose of steroids. She checked on him when she was off duty, And she told us, every day that you have from February 26th going forward, consider that a gift because he wasn't supposed to walk out of this hospital. So I took that to heart, and I'm extremely grateful. And it was the best times of our lives, not just the best of our relationship, but those 15 or 16 months were just absolutely awesome. So, we used to sit in our bedroom in the morning in bed. Tim would get coffee, feed the dog. I would start work because I work East Coast time. And, we would read the papers maybe during the interim, drink our coffee, hold hands, and watch the sunrise over the Little Santa Barbara Mountains, which is kind of home to Joshua Tree National Park. So I think it was on May the 2nd, Tim and I went out, took the dog for her morning walk, and then we walked another 2.5 miles, so a total of 3 miles. And then, he ends up short of breath on May the 5th. We thought it was pneumonia. We'd called his pulmonologist, just some various things like that. And then on May the 7th, ends up in the hospital, which kind of came as a shock. And then he got out on May the 9th and returned on the 14th and never left. And, it was just kind of a shock that, even though he had some health issues, 2-time cancer survivor, lymphoma and small cell lung cancer, and October would be 10 years survival on small cell lung cancer. So this was kind of a complete shock. During that time, he was in the hospital. We had quite a bit of family out here, and good things. Our youngest niece was in Istanbul on a business trip, and she cut her trip short to come home to say goodbye to Tim, to give me hugs, and to love both of us unconditionally. We had niece come out from Boston. We had another niece that came out from Boston about 3.5 weeks or so after Tim died because she had lost her husband. And she knew that you kind of got, people would get grief fatigue. And she came out and was very patient. It was over Tim's birthday and our anniversary, and basically sat and watched me cry for 72 hours. So, a lot of love. And my sister was out here through all of it. Tim being in the hospital. She lives in northern San Diego County. I've spent a lot of time at her house. I get to see 2 of my grandnieces that are 6 and 3 that, kind of take my mind off a little bit, even though it's not too far off. But, in the moment, because you have to watch them or they're doing something funny. And then when I come home, our home, reminds me of Tim. It's the place that he put together for us. And everywhere I turn in this house, it reminds me of Tim. And not that it's a bad thing, because I like to remember things about Tim. And then I think I've mentioned in an earlier episode, around July the 9th, I went back to Boston. I needed to close some of Tim's accounts, and I needed to see family. We have 8 nephews and nieces and their spouses that live in the Boston area. We have a load of grands, and Tim has 2 brothers and 2 sister-in-laws, and I saw the 2 brothers. I saw all the nieces and nephews that live in the Boston area. I saw most of their spouses at one time or the other. I think maybe one person I didn't see. And then I probably saw of the, 16 or 17 grands that we have in the Boston area. I think I saw 9 or 10 of them. And, it was comforting. There were dinners, but, there was also sadness, because these were things he would have liked and he would have loved. And, we all told our favorite Tim story. And, it's comforting to hear, but it's also very sad because he's not here. The conversations, the hugs, the laughter, the tears, and the grief, and the comforts and caring were very intense. I broke down more than a few times as I could not control my emotions despite having taken Wellbutrin. knowing that he could not be sitting at the table with us and sharing the jokes and the laughters was almost more than I could bear. It was palpable, the fact that he should have been with us. Also, while I was in Boston, I went to see my oncologist from Boston, not the one who actually did my chemo out here. I had, she had wanted me to get blood work done in Boston. Everything was good. Looks like I'm in remission. So I'm, over a month out having completed chemo now and immunotherapy. It's nice to have people who've been in a similar situation. So with some members of our family and some of our non-related family that are friends, I've been able to have those conversations for people that are unlucky enough to be in this shitty club called losing a spouse. Just the outpouring of love that I've had, calls, texts, emails from people have been great. Cards, people donating to, the charities that we designated for Tim, have all been great. But I still long to touch him, hold him, smell him. I miss him. I miss the life we built. The memories just do not seem to be enough for me right now, but they're all I have. I have startled myself out of sleep by crying. I never knew crying in your sleep was a thing. I'm learning a lot of new things about this process and about grief, and some are very sad. Sometimes the silence combined with the loneliness is deafening and potentially life-altering. Thank you for listening about my grief journey. Please be kind and grateful. I try to do this every day, but sometimes I fall short.